Hello and welcome to the latest from Hearts Standard. My name is Joel Skate, and on this occasion, as on most occasions, I am joined by James Kearney, who I believe just texted me and yeah. It was just the same question you asked me about a specific question for the topic we're about to discuss. So we asked our readers, our subscribers, our listeners, followers on Twitter, Facebook to send in some questions. We got a few. Some will be held over until next week when I will do it with Scott. However, there's one question that probably stood out the most in terms of us being able to get probably lends itself to a fuller episode, and that's rating the 7 summer signings out of 10 as, I've forgotten the person who has asked me. I sent you it, so that is fine. I'll just be able to get up here. Yes, HMFC Opinions asked, what are your ratings out of 10 for all Hearts summer signings? And now we are in February, so we've seen 6, 7, 8 months of these players, so I think we're in a good position to kind of judge the signings so far and how the impact they've made and kind of talk around them. So we're going to do that, and we might get to a question around the squad composition. So someone asked about if we have too many good players, which is interesting. So we'll get to talk about that as well.
Interesting slant on that question. Yeah. Too many good players. It's a terrible problem.
Yeah, it's an awful problem to have, but we'll see how we get on with rating the summer signings out of 10, and then we will maybe get to that because it kind of fits in with a lengthy piece that James will be putting on the site tomorrow just about assessing the squad and the different dynamics at play, but we'll get to that later on. So we will go with the summer signings. So I'm sure I think how to work this, do this position or do it from good to bad or bad to good. We'll go position because we'll just get Michael McGovern out there straight away. He was signed in the summer when Craig Gordon was still working his way back from injury and acted as backup to Zander Clark. I put this as essentially an NA. It's impossible to give him a rating out of 10 simply because he didn't play. He fulfilled his purpose as a backup goalkeeper.
Yeah, he warmed the bench magnificently, but we don't know if he's a good goalie or not. So,
we know we know he's a good goalkeeper because of his pedigree and what he's done in the past. So a solid option. And I think Naismith was always sure to mention him whenever he got asked about the Gordon-Clark dynamic. So he was always keen to mention, we've got another international goalkeeper in Michael McGovern. He's obviously gone on now to Livingston. How did he play against Partick Thistle? He did look a wee bit ropey for one of the goals.
The second goal he didn't cover himself in glory for. Certainly not. But apart from that, it was fine. I mean, it was helped by the fact that Partick Thistle didn't really want to shoot after about the hour mark anyway. So there you go.
Yeah,
he came in. He did his job. I mean, it was obviously someone who did have to come in. Obviously, there had to be a backup for Clark, and then in case Clark picked up a knock or a suspension or whatever. I mean, obviously suspension's unlikely, but you never know. But yeah, there had to be just another goalkeeper there, just for the competition sake, like in training, and then just so that there's a backup option there. So I think having him in certainly was a good thing. But I think now that Gordon's back in the picture, it's hard to justify keeping a player, like you say, of that pedigree around his third choice. It's a bit much.
Yeah. And I suppose another positive off McGovern was the fact that because of his experience, his pedigree, he was good for the likes of Liam McFarlane and other young goalkeepers are still at the club as well.
Yeah.
Moving on to the defence now, Frankie Kent. What did you give him, James?
I've given him a 9.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, like, again, it's that way of like I think a 10 would be a bit much because it's not quite been perfect, but at the same time, it's been very, very, very good. Like his impact on the team. Like, he's played just about every game. I think the Urdu game was the first game he hadn't started this season, right?
Yeah, so I think he played every single minute except the Urdu game. I think he's played the most. I think he's now played the most minutes for the club, even aside from even including Zander Clark, who I think was who he was tied with for a fair bit.
That would make sense. So I mean, yeah, I think the fact that he's played so regularly just tells you how important he's been to the team. Obviously, he's come in, he's just slotted right into the defence. He's really made that spot his own defensively. He's been the one kind of consistent aspect across the whole season. You know, sometimes Kingsley's been at right centre half, sometimes it's been a back three, sometimes it's been a back four, sometimes Halkett's been in there, but pretty much always it's been Frankie Kent in there as well, and with good reason. He's just been so solid since he's arrived. There have been one or two maybe wee mistakes, but nothing absolutely spectacular, and certainly nothing that happens regularly. And it just makes the Hearts a much better team, you know, and that's doesn't really matter where he's playing. If that's whether it's in the back four on the right hand side, if it's in the middle of the back three, if it's on the right of the back three when Hal gets back into the team, he's taken it all in his stride. He's not looked out of place at any stage, and I just think for a player of that age, this is probably something we'll get onto later on, but the type of signing that he is it couldn't have gone much better. I think in terms of the first team impact he's had and the level of consistency that he's shown. Again, it's not quite perfect, so we'll avoid the 10, but it's not far off it.
Yeah, so the reason I went for 9 instead of 10 was because of the fact that it's not even been a full season, but up until now it's been very, very good, and he's exactly what Hearts needed at the right time. So he's the right player at the right time. If Hearts, for example, had signed him in last January, I think would have finished third. I think really missed that leader at the back, and that's what Frankie Kent's been. Not only has he done all the defensive side of the game and brought those attributes which have been missing, heading just simply winning headers, winning your aerial battles, defending the box. When you watch him, that's his first thought when Hearts are defending is defend the box. He very rarely commits himself. I think he's only really done it once, and that was the Dundee game where Lyle Cameron ran through and scored. It's the first time I've really seen him kind of dive out and get it wrong. Usually he times everything very, very well. So he's an excellent defender. But what the Hearts defence needed was an experienced player who became a leader, and that's what he's done. He's fitted into the dressing room really well. A really popular figure, really good character off the pitch, and I think he's helped take that kind of team spirit. He's added to that team spirit. He's added to the togetherness within that. He's really and straight away, like you've seen. Some fans on social media would have seen a lot of the Hearts guys went to Dubai during the winter break, and Frankie Kent was one of them. He went for like Shankland and Kingsley and Zander Clark and Barry Mackay. Alex Lowry was there, who will come on to talk about. So he's really fit into that, but he's also he's done that off the field. He's done it on the field, and he's provided Hearts the qualities which will be missing last season when Halkett got injured. And then probably the biggest compliment I can pay to him is that when you're like, how does Halkett and Kent fit into that back line when they're both fit? Frankie Kent's still obviously it's going to take Halkett a wee while to get back up to full fitness. Obviously he's had the knee situation which happened in the Airdrie game, but you look at Frankie Kent now and you just look at him as he's the number one starter in the back line. He's the glue, and it's built around him.
No, absolutely. You know, and like you say, that's because of how good a player he's been and the attributes that he's got. But the other side of it as well is the fact that he is so consistent. You know, it's not as if he drops stinkers every now and then. So it doesn't really happen. He's just, you know what you're getting from him week in, week out. And the other thing as well, of course, is that he's clearly very fit. Like, if he's played every minute of every game, barring that one weekend there, you know, that's remarkable for a centre half, particularly when you factor in Europe and the League Cup as well. So, yeah, I think that's a kind of physical fitness, and is you know, I think that in itself as well is also just adds to that consistency. It just means he's one of those guys who you can just totally rely on, whether it's that's Naismith in the coaching team in the dugout, or whether it's, you know, supporters in the stadium. Everyone knows exactly what they're going to get from Frankie Kent, and you know it's going to be really. He's just a really, really solid player. So you have to say he's been a brilliant signing, a brilliant bit of business, and he just, you know, as I can see Graham in the comments there saying, a proper defender who brings out the best of roles, and I think that's probably true as well. Again, you know, he's making the players alongside him look better as well. So yeah, I think 9 out of 10. 9 out of 10. Yeah,
I was going to bring that what Graham said there, and it's not just roles. You look at Kingsley's fitting beside him, been really good, and I think he's helped younger players around him. And just if it allows me to present, I'll be able to bring up his some of his some stats on StatsBomb. Will this allow me to? It's going to allow me if you give me 2 seconds. But it kind of shows you how impressive he's been. If he can make it out, you might have to squint at the screen, and the numbers are really small. I should have made them bigger. But
I can't make out the numbers.
Yeah,
we'll just go with shape.
That's learning. But if you look at how he compares with in terms of aerial wins, blocks and shots, clearances, how few fouls he commits, he's amongst the best in the league at it, and he's been so important. So 9 out of 10, excellent. The other defender who was signed was Odel. Offiah came in from Brighton on loan. This is another. He's similar to McGovern. I couldn't really give him a mark just because of. I thought it was slightly harsh just because of. He's obviously had these issues off the field, which he's had to receive treatment for. He's went down to Brighton. Don't think we really seen the best out of him. However, in the small bits I did see, I didn't think he made the team all that better. I think he looked really uncomfortable at wing back, and that's when Hearts changed to a wing back. And then in a back four, probably didn't see the best of him. So I thought that was. I wouldn't class it as a disappointing signing. I just think it was disappointing in how it turned out, just because of factors that really Hearts couldn't control.
No, exactly. They're beyond anyone's control. So I think you're right. I mean, we only really saw flashes of him and the odd appearances here and there. I think that, like you say, I don't think it's particularly suited to a back four, but he didn't look particularly confident at wing back either. Which was a bit of a problem. But obviously, he wasn't able to play towards the end of his loan spell. He had to return back to his parent club. So it feels a bit harsh giving him a grade under those circumstances. So I think he gets another pass as well, along with McGovern.
We'll move on to the midfield and Calem Nieuwenhof. I think if this was...
I think we might disagree on this one.
Do you think you would disagree?
Maybe, yeah. I think so. I don't know. I'm looking at mine now and I'm thinking I might have been harsh. I don't know.
Okay, so I was going to say up until a few weeks ago, I think there would be I would have certainly given out a different mark, but I've gone for 7.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I've gone for a 6.
Okay.
Purely on that basis of, I think that it's early doors. I think this is a 6 with an asterisk on it. I think this is one that, let's ask this question again in 6 months and see what we're saying. I think I suspect it will go higher. But I think that right now, yes, the last few games have been really, really encouraging. He's been great. He's put in some great performances. But we can't just disregard the 6 months or whatever it was before that either, when we were regularly saying we didn't really see what he was bringing to the team all that much, and it's hard to see what exactly, what his thing was. What is it he really brings to the team. It was difficult to see that, and I think that while we are starting to see that now, and now it's looking really encouraging, it's looking rosy. We do need to remember that for large spells of the season and a lot of games this season, he's not been particularly effective. I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, that's fair. I've probably very much got my fan hat up here and been swept up in the last few weeks. Just, I think certainly the last few games I've paid closer attention to him, because we had the conversation a couple of weeks ago where we were just talking about what does Calem Nieuwenhof add to this midfield, and we know for a fact that Stephen Naismith is a big fan. And he's been keen to point that out every time you speak to him. Remember at the coach's presentation, he said he's going to be a really good player for us, and that's something that kind of raised my eyebrows, because again, I just didn't see what he was bringing to the midfield. But having watched him closer, I just think, while no quality, like one quality stands out, like you got Benny and his composure and how he takes the ball in the centre of the pitch, and then maybe George Grant's creative ability to kind of create and combine. Whereas I think Nieuwenhof does a lot of stuff just well. I think he really does cover. I think a lot of the things he does is really subtle, and he covers the ground well. He takes the ball. We've talked about it, and he keeps it. Naismith likes that control he brings. He likes that he makes good decisions, and I think over the last few weeks we've really seen a growth in him, in that he's been more assertive in the midfield. And I think that was the big thing, was that he maybe not like he never seemed to be flustered or overwhelmed. He just seemed to be a wee bit standoffish or safe. But I think the more he's got used to the surroundings, he's got used to what's being asked of him. He's been more assertive. He's been increasingly dominant. He's been more positive with his passing, but also he's running. Like the last few games, he's really getting into the final third and being more influential going forward. And that's why I gave him a 7. And yeah, I can see where the asterisk is. Like, okay, let's give him time. Let's not jump to conclusions and he's suddenly a world beater. But I do think the fact that he's still only 22, he turns 23 on Saturday, I think it is. But there's real potential there, and that I think we've seen that in the last few weeks.
Absolutely, no, yeah, definitely. Again, like I think that, as I say, I think if you ask me this question again in May, I'd like to be. I really hope I'd be saying a 7 or an 8 or something like that. But I just think right now, based on what we've seen so far, because he has had a lot of game time as well. He's had a lot of chances. And I think that, but I do agree though. Like, you can definitely see there has been progression, particularly over the last few weeks, the last few games, especially. He's been brilliant getting forward. He's been brilliant getting back as well. He's really looked like that kind of all-round midfielder, like you say. But I just think that we just need to see that a bit more consistently. Again, it's been 2, 3, 4 games maybe where he's done very, very well. And it's just about making sure that continues between now and the end of the season. So, yeah, I'm sticking with my 6, but with an asterisk.
With you giving Nieuwenhof a 6, I fear how low you're going to give a couple of the next players. So we'll go to Alex Lowry. I gave him a 5 out of 10.
I also had 5 actually for Lowry. Yeah,
I think middling was probably best because he showed glimpses of his talent. I was really, really encouraged and really hopeful, enthusiastic that he would be a really good player for Hearts and to be that bridge between what the team needed at the start of the season and then until Barry Mackay came back and there was maybe not as much of a reliance on him. But I just thought over his time at Hearts, you just saw a player who was frustrating, was inconsistent, but also talented.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. Because there were, again, don't get me wrong, there were games where he did go missing and he didn't really do much at all, have much influence whatsoever. But then there were other games, you think, they had that, obviously he scored that winning goal away to Kilmarnock in League Cup. There was the goal in the derby at Tynecastle. He got the assist up at Dingwall for the only goal of the game in order to win that one. So you think, there were moments he did contribute, big moments and contribute to points and wins and things like that. But like you say, it was too few and far between, just too inconsistent. There were some games where, but you'd be amazed he's coming back out for the second half with some of the performances he's putting in at times. But then other games where he was, the match winner or the guy that turned it in Hearts' favour. So, like you say, there's definitely talent there. There's no, I don't think there's any question of that. But like you said, there wasn't that consistency though. And then particularly with Barry Mackay being out injured for such a long, getting injured again when he comes back, it just meant that there had to be a degree of reliability in that position. I think just because, and that's why we saw Grant playing more and more regularly towards the end of the calendar year, just because he was bringing that consistency that someone, he's probably not capable of the similar sorts of kind of moments of magic and kind of pulling something out of nothing that someone like Lowry can do, but he does the other stuff a lot more consistently, and that's what was needed.
Yeah, I think like Graham says as well, too inconsistent, flashes of quality, but not enough. And I think that was probably it, was that he just didn't provide enough for the talent that he has. And I just looked at him, and the more it was after the Motherwell game where we won 2-1 at Fir Park. I just thought, right, that's a moment for him to kick on. I thought it was so important in that win. We kind of wrote about it, just how the role he has, especially kind of drifting out to the left. I think right now, kick on and be that consistent player. Now, you're not going to do it every single game. You're going to have moments in games and games where you drift off. Barry Mackay has had that throughout his Hearts career, but the more you watch him, I just didn't felt he fitted into the team dynamic that Naismith wanted. Again, Naismith wants players to make better decisions. But how many times did you watch Lowry? He would try a pass, and then the next thing you saw was him his hand up apologising because he's tried he's tried the pass that I try and make all the time at fives, and just like it'll come off once every 10. And when you are in a midfield three, where yes, he's got a wee bit of creative license, but you also have to play within a team dynamic, 1 out of 10 passes isn't good enough.
No, exactly. That was always the thing when you looked at him. It's like, yeah, he can play a Hollywood pass, but that's the problem. Was he'd play one, it'd work, it'd pay off, and like you say, he'd try the next 5. And it wasn't on. Just just play it to the guy next to you. So that's definitely I think that's what's held him back a wee bit, and it's probably why someone like Scott Fraser's been brought in as well, just someone who is just a bit more experienced, a bit more level-headed perhaps, and a bit more
mature.
Careful,
That's
careful with the ball,
Yeah, and more mature. I think that's something that Naismith talked about, was someone they needed a bit more maturity in the final third, and Grant's provided that. Like you said, Fraser's another one who can do that. We'll finish on a high, so we'll go with Kyosuke Tagawa next. What's your mark for him? I swithered with a 3, but I probably gave him a generous 4.5.
I gave him a 3. I've got 3 down. Yeah, I don't feel good about it. I don't feel, I'm not proud of it, but I've got 3. And it's
a difficult one. The reason I didn't go as low down as a 3, and I'll let you explain why you went for a 3. The reason I didn't was because a mixture of the arriving from Japan, completely different culture, etc., etc. He's never really had a run of games to kind of get up to speed, and he's also had an injury early on in his Hearts career. So I kind of weighed up those factors, but yeah, I can understand why you've gone for a 3.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, there are degrees of mitigation. Like there's lots going on there. Like you say, there has been, there's been an injury. He's still adapting. There's, he's not had a run of games. So definitely, there's also an argument. I think tactically, perhaps he's not the best fit for this Hearts team in the way they play, or more to the point, the way that the opposition set up against Hearts. It can be very difficult for a player like him, who seems to be someone who wants to play on the shoulder, to find space and do that against the kind of low block, for instance. So I've got sympathy, I get it, but at the same time, he's really not offered much, has he? Like at all in the games that he has been playing. I mean, he has scored a goal, so that gets that it's not a complete disaster, and he has played. He has played games. It's not as if he's not even been in squads or anything like that. So, and again, this is another one where I really, really hope that if you ask me at the end of the season, and it's bumped up a few points, but I just think that as it stands right now, it's difficult to see what he brings to the team so what he's brought to the team so far. Again, that might change in future, and hope for everyone involved that it does. But right now, we can only judge him in what his contribution's been so far, and his contributions so far has been not great.
Yeah, he's had he has had opportunities, not really showing up enough in those opportunities. It's then you have to weigh in the fact that you'd signed a 4-year deal, and it can go. This can go either one of two ways, and that it's like a 4-year deal, and you compare it to Boyd Moore, Mallory Martin in the past, where they've just not worked out, and they've had to go out on loan. They kind of just hung around because the length of the contract so big, or the fact that there's a 4-year deal. There's loads of time for it to work. But yeah, it's with it being the positive is that he's not been needed to produce yet. That's what Hearts have done so well, and Shanklin has been so good that the pressure on him has not been there, and you never know, especially with strikers, you get a goal and then you might start a wee bit of momentum. But at the moment, it's especially the Spartans game, the Airdrie game, it was 2 perfect opportunities for him to really produce and maybe get on the score sheet and build confidence. And instead of building confidence, it's not confidence more than anything, maybe.
What I would say about both those games, again, I don't think Tagawa was good in either of them. Okay, I'll stay out front, but I will kind of defend them as well. And I think the Spartans game would have been an incredibly difficult game for any striker to play in. Because we saw the way they were all camped out. There was literally no space. That's a difficult like shift as is. And then with the Airdrie game, he did come on, but he came on and he's almost playing like a right winger.
Yeah,
and it's that way of being like, can we not just, I know Shanklin's the captain and all that, but can we not just give Tagawa a go up front in his actual preferred position in a game where he might, where Hearts are already up against an opponent where he will find space to run in behind and things like that. Like, this is the perfect opportunity, and you'll go, like, why not do it then rather than playing him kind of again out where he was just completely peripheral to it all. So yeah, I'll defend him a little bit for that. But yeah, certainly so far it's not been much to write home about, has it?
No. But the other forward that was signed has had a different trajectory, a more positive one, and that's Kenneth Vargas. What did you give Vargas?
So I've got him down as a 7.
Oh, I forget, give 7.5.
See, I didn't know we were doing 0.5s.
Yeah.
See,
I mean, it's
make out of 10 then. Make out of 20. Just make it, it's ridiculous. Anyway.
Sorry, I didn't know 0.5s were. You were so passionate about 0.5s. But anyway, the reason I went Vargas, it was hard to put between a 7 and 8, just because, again, it's not been overly consistent, but there is signs, and the signs like Nieuwenhof, but Vargas has done it over a longer period, that is progressing bit by bit. And the fact that when he first came in, he really took to the league or adapted quite quickly, and Hearts fans appreciated what they saw from just of his attitude, his enthusiasm, his willingness to work hard. This is a player who has been looking for an opportunity in Europe, has got it, and he really wants to take it. Hearts have an option to make it a permanent deal. I would imagine when you're looking at just how, again, that progress that he's made, I think it should be a pretty straightforward deal to be done to keep him long term, because you look at him as if you mould him the right way, Hearts can make some good money off him. He's starting to score goals. I think early on in the season, moving about position, different kind of roles, what was asking for him was a bit more difficult for him, whereas now there's a bit more freedom, and he's producing numbers. He's been a lot more productive, effective, and yeah, really excited about I'm really excited about what he could be.
No, definitely. I think that's it. Over the last few weeks, yes, he's been getting goals, which is great to see. But I think that even earlier on in the season, he was still playing well without getting the goals. Because remember, that's what we kept saying. Because there's a run where he went on where he had about 10 games or something where he didn't get a goal or an assist, and it was kind of like he just needs to start getting some numbers as an attacking player. But I think that after obviously Shankland and Forrest, Vargas has probably been Hearts' third most kind of effective attacker this season. Like obviously Boyce has been injured, Mackay's been injured, Oda's been inconsistent. So I think that it's got to be him. I think he has, like you say, he's playing in a variety of different roles, which is it's nice. I think it's good to have that kind of versatility. I think it helps players understand like what to do on the pitch and the kind of runs to make and so on, that kind of thing. But I think the most important thing is that since he has been kind of played on the right hand side, he has been playing a lot better. He's been getting goals, and he's just developing along really nicely. He's one of those guys who you think, like you say, he's got lots of potential. There's quite a high ceiling there, and it does seem like it'd be a really obvious move to make. So I don't know the ins and outs of the move, of the agreement or anything like that. But if the agreement's already set up and Hearts have the money to go for it, then absolutely go for it, because this is a guy who I think you'd put into that bracket of, okay, keep him, try and develop him for a few years and then see what happens in the market. But I'd say particularly over the last month, I've been really encouraged, because I'd say the one thing you could hold against him was he wasn't getting enough goals or assists for an attacker. But now we're starting to see that, and it's becoming a bit more regular. So yeah, really positive signing, really great addition to the team, and here's hoping he kicks on. Yeah,
just on what you said about Boyce, I do think that's a good point, because he's been asked to do something that maybe Hearts didn't want to rely on so much early on, and they did. But now, having settled a bit more, he's integrated really well with the team. He carpools with Calem Nieuwenhof. His English is slowly but surely improving. He's at home in Edinburgh. You just have to look at his Instagram. I think he just seems to enjoy being in the city, and so enjoys being around the squad. And yeah, I think he's enjoying here. And Stephen asks, "We confident he'll be here next season?" I mean, I wouldn't put my mortgage on it. Mrs. wouldn't be happy with that, but I would. If I was a betting man, I would. I'll put a fair wage down on him being here next season, depending on what the odds are. Now, before we move on to kind of just finishing up there, but going back to another question that Stephen asked, does Lewis Nielsen coming back next season put Civic on the transfer list? I'm not sure whether it would be a kind of official transfer list, but I would imagine that with Lewis Nielsen coming back, and the fact that we talked about on Sunday at the game, James, Toby Simic wasn't in the squad. I do think that if an opportunity presents itself for Civic to move on in the summer, I don't think Hearts will be overly hard to deal with, but I do think they would want to bring in a decent fee, because again, he's shown that he's versatile, a good squad member. With Halkett being injured, he'll be back on the bench, no doubt, this weekend as well.
No, yeah, I think it's definitely difficult for Civic. I think he's in a strange position where he's probably, I think he is a good player, but he's just got better players ahead of him, and that's just look at Kent right now. He's just more reliable. Part of me thinks though Civic might well get kept on. If Naismith's going to persist with the back four, Civic might well be kept to play at right back along with Atkinson, just because obviously Len Bakisa will be away come the end of the season. So that's either where you're either going to have to sign somebody else, or maybe move him on. So I
think sign someone else. I don't think Newton Naismith sees him as a right back.
I would expect so, but you never know. But yeah, that's definitely an area of the squad that needs strengthened further. So, I mean, I would probably expect Civic to go in the summer, to be honest. I think he's one of those guys, like you say, if a decent bid came in, he's fallen down the pecking order, so it kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
And he's got kind of established players ahead of him that it seems to be unlikely they're going to be going anywhere. So we shall see. But Lewis Nielsen, certainly, he's been playing at centre half at Partick Thistle pretty much exclusively. So I think that when he comes back to Tynecastle, that'll be to play centre half. Like that's the way that kind of he's always been spoken about. I don't think, because I know people in the past have said, he could maybe play right back or wing back. I'm pretty sure we're doing centre half.
And before we finish, we won't go in depth in the next question, but I thought it'd be worthwhile for you to kind of talk about an article that you were putting up tomorrow on the website. It was Harry15151515 or at Gorgie George asked, do Hearts now have too many good players / players of a similar ability in certain positions? Kent, Halkett, Rowles and Kingsley. Who's more of a centre half now? Kent, Halkett, Rowles and Kingsley. In brackets, Kingsley is more of a centre half now, are all at centre back vying for potentially 2 spots. So you've done a squad assessment. So briefly, just kind of talk about how you found that and how you view the squad composition.
Yeah, so I was trying to come up with an idea for squad depth, but it's obviously tricky because Naismith likes to switch between when sometimes it's a back 3, sometimes it's a back 4, and it seems to be well stocked across both sets, both formations in order to do so. So I think that right now the squad's in a good position, but you only have to go back a week or two, and it was in quite a perilous position, particularly at the back. So yeah, right now there's all these defenders, all these centre halves that are available and fit to play. Halkett obviously we'll find out about soon enough, but I mean, it was only, for instance, as long as the Dundee game, where if Naismith had wanted to play a back 3, he wouldn't have been able to do it because he didn't have enough players. There was that, it meant like moving Forrest to right wing back in order something, and that's the only way you could do it. So or maybe bringing in Aidan Denham and playing him at right wing back. But the point was, there are certain positions in the squad that are actually Hearts. There's not that much strength. I think largely across the board they're pretty solid, but up front at the moment, it's obviously an issue if Shankland was to get injured or suspended, because Liam Boyce is injured. Tagawa can't really be relied upon. Forrest isn't an out striker. Vargas lone striker. That's probably your only option, really. Obviously, managers like having options. Saying you've only got one, that's not great. And the other area is left back as well, where obviously there's Alex Cochrane who's having a great season, playing brilliantly. Stephen Kingsley can obviously play there as well. But the real issue is the fact that if like we saw it for the Dundee game, if Kingsley gets ill, or he's injured, or he gets suspended for a lengthy time, then that causes big problems because of his versatility. It means Cochrane, you're playing the full 90 minutes, and you better hope Cochrane doesn't pick up an injury in that game, or if he doesn't get tired, because if he does, then you run short of options quite quickly. So I think there are 1 or 2 areas in the squad where it only takes like one quite bad injury or one lengthy suspension to cause issues, but on the whole, it's looking pretty good. There's a kind of clear model of players who are. Oh, hang on, sorry, 1 second. I've just noticed my battery's about to pop out. Turn it off. Hang on.
Well, while James is doing that, frantically fixing his laptop, what I would say is with the left back situation, because that was quite a unique situation in that Rowles was away on international duty, and then you brought up about Kingsley getting ill. Left back, I think you've got three options really, because you've got Rowells there when everyone's fit. He's played there for Australia. I think it's more kind of, if you want to play wing back, then I think Kingsley, like Gorgie George said, is I just see Kingsley now as a centre back or left back. I don't really see him as a wing back. Don't really see Rowells as a wing back, and see him as a centre back who can also play left back as well. So, but again, you mentioned the piece. James Penrice is someone that Hearts understood to be looking at, as well as the vast majority of the Scottish Premiership.
Yeah. So I mean, that'd be a really smart addition. I think that solves that plugs that gap. But if you look ahead to the summer, obviously Jan Danda's going to be coming in as well. Scott Fraser might well end up staying. If that happens, then all of a sudden there's an abundance of midfielders, which is great. You know, there's lots of different options, lots of different kind of guys to choose from. I guess the one kind of big position going into the summer is probably that number 6 role in Benny Beningame. Andrew McKinley seemed to suggest that he was going to be staying, which is great. But if he does move on, you've only really got Macaulay Tate there. Now, obviously, Macaulay Tate's done really well recently. He's particularly once the Dundee game, wasn't it, where he was just absolutely brilliant during that second half. But it's a big ask going from saying, can you play 45 minutes here, 30 minutes here, to going, all right, you're now going to play 90 minutes every week, week in, week out. It's a big ask. So that's an area of the squad that probably needs strengthened. If Beningame does leave in the end, or even if he stays, perhaps there might still be room for a few more bodies in there. No,
I disagree. I think if Benny stays, and it's between Benny and Tate, because I don't. My fear is I wouldn't want the club to sign players in positions that there is a talented academy player coming through like Tate. It's like, that's fine. He's part of the first team. I think he's a real trusted part of the first team now. And if Benny was to leave, I'd want him to. If Benny was to leave, I would want him to step up into that position. And but I agree that someone would need to be signed on the back of it, because again, he's going to be 18, 19 next season, and there'll be times where Naismith will want to take him out the team. So then you have to have a more experienced player in that position. But I think if Benny stays, then I really do think it's those two that cover that position, because Naismith sees him as a number 6, and I wouldn't want someone coming in who might be just seen as the kind of squad filler, getting minutes away from Tate.
Yeah, I suppose that's fair. And again, that's something I kind of touched on in the piece as well, is that you have got these academy players who the long-term hope should be that they get first team exposure, and then, after they play well enough, and then they either become established first team players, or then they get sold for good money down the line somewhere. Because I think that the way I kind of looked at it, there was kind of like 5 categories to the squad. There was kind of like experienced Premiership players who are going to make up kind of the crux of your squad. They're going to be playing most weeks. They'll be reliable, consistent, all the rest of it. Kind of experienced players brought in other leagues, so like maybe George Grant, Frankie Kent. Hopefully the idea is that once they get enough experience of Scottish football, they then kind of move into that first category. Then you've got the other 3 categories where you've got players who have been developed and are at a stage now where you'd like to get money for them. If they were to leave for free, it'd be a travesty. You're looking at the likes of your Alex Cochrane, Kai Rose, Shankland, obviously is a big one. Even Cammy Devlin, these guys who it's like, if they left for free, come on, that'd be bad business. Then you've got another category of players, category 4, which was more kind of players in their early 20s, players who maybe who can maybe get to that point where they play well, they develop, then they can attract interest from big money clubs. So you're looking at guys like Odel, Vargas, Nieuwenhof, those kinds of players who it's obviously too soon for them to be, getting moved to like the Premier League or whatever, but a few good years, who knows, maybe. And then of course you've got the academy players coming in to supplement that squad as well. The idea is that hopefully they'll all move up a level. So I think that when you look at the squad at the moment, there is a really nice competition to it in terms of the age, in terms of the profile of players, in terms of who's likely to attract bids and when, and all that kind of stuff. There's a nice kind of
balance.
Yeah, there's a nice balance to it, but it does all hinge on, at some point or another, Hearts are going to have to start selling players for 7-figure fees. And while that's detrimental to the squad in the short term, nobody wants to sell Alex Cochrane, nobody wants to sell Lawrence Shankland. But at some point, if this model's going to work, it's going to have to happen.
I think that the club want to player trade, but but they want to do it on their own terms. And like it's not
Yeah.
it's not like other clubs where maybe they're relying on selling someone every single season. I don't think that's the case. If we don't, then it's not a massive deal. I think selling is just an added bonus, but it's something the club want to do. But yeah, it's a really in-depth piece. It's a really good piece. It'll be going up tomorrow morning, so be sure to check that out. Before we finish, one last question I kind of wanted to answer was, and it was a fair question. I think it was Dean Brown on Facebook said, "Why are you making us pay for this?" And you know what? It's something that resonates with me. I completely understand why he asked the question, because up until a few years ago, I'd never really, even though I work in the industry, I'd be like, no chance am I paying for any sort of content which should be free on the internet. But I've started to do that. I've been paying for The Athletic the last few years, and even started to pay for a newsletter recently, just about updates around Edinburgh. Anyway, why we're making you pay for this is just because the subscription model, we think that's the future, and we want to provide the best coverage around of Hearts, and it takes time. And already in the industry is going a certain way. There's been a lot of cutbacks around the industry. A lot of people, unfortunately, being made redundant, which is not great. But this is something that we feel is kind of future-proofing. It's hopefully sustainable, and we believe it's not that expensive. I think at the moment the offer is £4 for 4 months, and then it's £2.99 a month. And we do feel that with that money we can go in depth. We can provide much kind of more depth to stories, a variety of stories, rather than kind of just relying on I hate the term clickbait, but kind of just easy hits. That we were not really wanting to just be focused on number of hits. We want to provide a lot more kind of analytical deep dive coverage, and that's why we hope that it's worthwhile, and hopefully that keeps us in a job essentially. So yeah, but any questions around that, I'm more than happy to chat on social media, or you can email me. You can find my email. But until then, thank you very much, James.
Thank you.
And thank you very much, everyone, for listening and engaging and reading and subscribing, etc., etc. Because we're on YouTube, if you do have a YouTube channel, be sure to subscribe, and that way you can get notified of all our live videos. That will be us until Friday. Until then, thank you very much, and have a nice rest